of ships as South Africa, and then it is something that we need to build, and then we are highly dependent on the industry to take on board our seafarers, and we still also want to extend that call to say that let us partner together and make, and then it is something that we need to build, and then we are highly that is maritime industry while take on board our seafarers, and we still also want to extend that call to say that let us partner together and make, and it is something that is also call ourselves, and then we are highly that is maritime industry. We have to take potentials, and then let us harness that potential together and say that let us partner together and it is make, and it is something that is also call ourselves, and then we are highly that is maritime industry. We have to take potentials, and then let us harness that potential together in terms of saying let us partner together and it is make, and it is something that is also call ourselves, and then we are highly that is maritime industry. We have to take potentials, and then let us harness that potential together in terms of saying let us partner together and it is make, and it is something that is also call ourselves, and then we are highly that is maritime industry. We have to take potentials, and then let us harness that potential together in terms of saying let us partner together and it is make, and it is something that is also call ourselves, and then we are highly that is maritime industry. We have to take potentials, and then let us harness that potential together in terms of saying let us partner together and it is make, and it is something that is also call ourselves, and then we are highly that is maritime industry. We have to take potentials, and then as we do that one all opened up in SAMSA. The posts of the surveyors, they remain, we keep on filling them because the surveyor is the one pool of our workforce that brings in a sizable revenue streams into the books of SAMSA. And then, as I've indicated again, colleagues, when I look into our finances for the year for the past year, we have got a procurement plan, and then we have got about 18% of the procurement plan that has been awarded to date. And then out of that procurement plan, we have got also a 66% of the procurement plan which has not been awarded. And then I'm sure we can all agree that we all know that if we have not awarded, and then it's already February now, we are not going to be able to award that 66%. What are we saying to the sector? But then this is one thing that the board has called us to say that how then do we leverage on the procurement plan and make sure that we use our procurement plan as SAMSA towards a transformed SAMSA and then a maritime sector. And then I would then say that that procurement plan and then leveraging it towards that transformation, it is a call for SAMSA, but then I would also implore the maritime industry at large to also use their procurement plan to implement those transformative elements that we so desire as a job creation. And I would want to say that in the words of Hifa, as Amara who once said, change is inevitable, but transformation is by conscious choice. And in that conscious choice, it is for me, it is for all the people in the maritime industry to make that choice towards developmental state, to make that choice towards a transformed maritime sector. I want to say again, colleagues, we have greatly improved, even though we are saying that we don't have money. For the financial year of 2020, unfortunately, we in terms of compliance, we could not close our audit in time. But I am proud to say that we have achieved an unqualified audit outcome for the financial year 2020, and then that has been a work that came together because there was a pool of resources from the SAMSA workers at large. By putting together a comprehensive audit action plan, by being able to better communicate as well as better coordinate their work as a team towards what the findings, answering to some of the requests from the AG, and then working together, it has proven that we at least were able to improve our financial outcome, our audit outcomes. And as we do that one, also we implemented some internal controls, and then they have been seen to be working. There are still some laggings, some here and there, but really it was a great moment for us when we received in December already, which is outside of the compliance timeframes of the annual report, that unqualified audit outcome, and then it came 4 years after a 4 year of receiving qualified audits. So it is a great achievement, and then a round of applause for the finance team in particular, and then the SAMSA officials at large for achieving that unqualified audit outcome for 2020-21, of which we will be going into the AGM, and the annual report will be available soon on our website as well. I am going to move quickly again in terms of the people perspective. As I've indicated, we are a SAMSA that is bleeding in terms of our finances. We are having management challenges in terms of our organizational structure. We have got a bloated management level, but then those are the things that we are dealing with. And then, as I've indicated earlier on, the board has progressed in terms of the appointment of the CEO, a permanent CEO. And then I do believe that the results are the chairperson will also speak to that one as well. We have implemented some of the things like you are coming up with a management structure which we call MANCO, and I am sure all of us will agree that maritime still remains a largely male organized or male dominant sector. It is something that is also a challenge at SAMSA, and then we are trying as much as we can to meet the equitable employment equity targets. And then as we do that one, also that talks into the way that we are transforming the sector as an SOE. And that lack of women empowerment, it is something that is striking also at EXCO, because I think that we have got at the EXCO helm, we have got only the CFO as well as the chief human capital as women. And we are also looking into the issue of saying that how then do we retain our people under the core factor of saying that we have got scarce and critical scarce skill. And we have recently put a program whereby we are inviting young people, young mariners and then seafarers to come on board as marine officers, and then they go through a rigorous training. We are currently having 3 of them that started last year in November, and then we hope to improve that number from 3 and double it to 6. It is one other area that we will be doubling as we go and as we get more monies. And we have got quite a number of challenges also when it comes to the employee relations. I'm sure we all recall that we still have 3 of our executives who are still on precautionary suspensions, and then the board chairperson will speak about to that one. But then we are also now as at management level assisting the board in terms of the management of the forensic investigator, and then I do believe that the results will come forth in the next month. The impact of COVID-19 on us as SAMSA, it has called us to look into the way of doing things, and then as I've indicated, we are implementing. There are gaps, but then we are improving in terms of working from home, and we are looking also of the rationalization of our office space, which is our offices around the regions, and then we are now making sure that we are still able to serve the communities that we serve, and then we are able to meet the service delivery aspects of it. Our performance in terms of the corporate performance indicators in our APP, we are now currently standing at 63% performance as we approach a year end, which is likely to end at 87% as we close the financial year. And we had also a challenge in terms of the cyber attack, which happened sometime in April 2021. But then that has been since resolved. We have put in place there are quite a number of cyber things and new systems that have been implemented, and then new ways of doing things on our internet and everything else, so that at least we can minimize the impact of such a cyber attack as happened in April 2021. Colleagues and the maritime sector, you would recall that we still had a challenge of the IMO whitelist status as South Africa. We have brought in December, we had the last session with the independent evaluator who was on board with us as SAMSA and as well as the Department of Transport to help us to correct and then show some of the gaps that have been outstanding in terms of us retaining our status on the IMO whitelist. And then that report is due to be delivered to the IMO in March. And then once the committee has made an assessment, we are hopeful, according to the results that we have got from that independent evaluation, that we will be able to retain the whitelist as South Africa. That should be good news. However, we still remain the challenge of placement of the seafarers on board for job opportunities. And Or on that one again, the last one is that we are still having some outstanding or some of the old legislation and regulations, and then we are working hand in hand with the Department of Transport to make sure that, or whatever that convention that we have acceded to, we are able to nationalize it, and then we can be able to make implement in the form of regulations. In terms of the stakeholder management, we are doing well in terms of the stakeholder management. We did celebrate some of the key events like Mandela Day by giving out the water tanks to the community in a community in Northern Cape. And then as we did that, it was us meeting our corporate social initiative obligation as SAMSA. And we have had an unfortunate event in December in the IMO Council elections. It is really a sad one for us to say that we have lost our seat as South Africa in the IMO Council, and then we now need to work more and more harder for us to go back into the council come the elections again in 2024. And then we will do that in liaison with the leaders which are Department of Transport as well as DERCO, for us to be able to support that campaign, and then make sure that we are able to go into the 40-seat council when the elections come for the IMO. It is important for us to go back into the council so that at least we can be able to say that the SADC region is well, the southern tip of Africa is well represented in the IMO Council. And then we are also hopeful that as we do that one, we'll also be, as South Africa, be able to ratify the resolution that says that we are going to increase the number of seats in the council. And then once the number of seats in the council are increased, we are also hopeful that it is going to ease the competition when it comes to the IMO council seats. And one last note when it comes to the stakeholder engagement, I would say that the maritime and the shipping people, they would be aware that we have released a marine notice one, which is about saying that it is a call for us to open the application process in terms of the bunkering as well as ship-to-ship codes. And then that was done effectively from the 1st of February 2022. And then that application process was opened solely in anticipation of us uplifting the moratorium which was put on place in 2019 in terms of saying that we are going to open the bunkering sector along the South African coastline, not only in the Algoa Bay, along the South African coastline come the 1st of April 2022. That is work in progress, and then we are still in extensive engagements with the sector regarding that opening of the uplifting of the moratorium, and then we'll keep all the stakeholders updated. And we are doing this uplifting in line with the CMTP 2022 theme, which says that we need to unblock and the maritime value chain. And we can only do that one by opening up the sector into viable, where there is viable opportunities, making sure that we open those viable opportunities. And as I close, I want to say that looking ahead, as I've indicated, we are still yet to have the AGM, which is going to now be preceded by the tabling of the SAMSA 2020-2021 annual report. And then, as I've indicated, the greatest thing that happened out of this audit was us now getting that unqualified audit opinion. We still have a board strategy that is setting a pace and a tone for us. How then do we unfold and then unblock this sector as we go forward into the APP 2022-2023? And in that session with the board is going to take place now in the end of February. And we are also going to share with you our state of maritime safety, in terms of saying that we have got maritime casualties in 2020 that have now been well documented, and then we are going to table that report as well and then release it out to the public. It is going to be launched. The 2021 report is also ready. It is going to be launched, but then we will share the state of safety report with all our stakeholders once the ministers have released it. And in terms of the incidences, I think we are all aware that we have had some challenging times in recently. I will start maybe with the incident that happened in the in the Josini, whereby there was that unfortunate vessels or a ferry, a recreational ferry, unfortunately caught fire, and then we lost some people, some foreigner visitors there. But then those are the challenges that we are grappling with of SAMSA. We are trying to improve our visibility around even the dams, because we have got a mandate from the Department of Transport in terms of the inland strategies, and then we are trying. We cannot be we're not able to be present for and cover all the dams that we have in South Africa, but then we are striving to make sure that at least we can train people to be able to be some ambassadors around those dams, and then they can be able to carry out the basic safety elements in terms of water safety. And we have had another incidents in terms of the oil spill in the bay, and it was not a major oil spill, but then it is still a cause for concern. We had the recent one in terms of the cargo, and I think that people were saying that SAMSA has illegally dumped cargo or toxic cargo alongside in Saldanha Bay. It was a decision that was not only a SAMSA-based decision, it was coming from the joint operations. And then as such, it was, for us, it was still a success because we had to do what we had to do and take decisions, not in isolation, but then as a joint operations together with all the relevant authorities to make sure that we avert a major spill or a major catastrophe on our waters. And then on that note, colleagues and esteemed members of the Maritime fraternity, I think that is all from us in terms of operations, people management, our finances. And then as I close, I would want to say that a free and open society is an ongoing conflict. It is going to be interrupted periodically and then as we do that one, we need to reach consensus and compromises, as it was said by Paul Alinsky. And as we do that one, the same goes the current challenges that we're having in the bunkering session. We need some compromises. We need to come together to make sure that we have got a thriving maritime sector. And then as we do that one, key to that one, it must be able to create jobs, and then it must be a transformed sector. On that note, I thank you.
Okay. Thank you kindly, Acting CEO, for a detailed and I would even say transparent and open presentation on the state of SAMSA. And I hope colleagues managed to pick up on the key messages and key points that the SAMSA acting CEO spoke to. Needless to say, therefore, colleagues, that some of the detail of the key items that the acting CEO spoke to are contained in the SAMSA annual report for the 2020-2021 financial year, which will soon be tabled in Parliament and shared with all the stakeholders via our normal communication channels, mainly the SAMSA website. Without wasting too much time, I would have liked to reflect on the acting CEO's presentation, but due to time constraints, colleagues, we're now moving over to the next section of the program, that being the reflection from our panelists. And as we had mentioned earlier on, the panelists have been allocated 5 minutes maximum of speaking time, reflecting on the year that was from their respective environments and also touching quickly on the future outlook in their respective environments. Yeah, we may wish to perhaps put up the program on the screen, colleagues, instead of the presentation that we have, so that we can see the list of stakeholders and the order that we are going to follow as the colleagues give their presentations. And whilst the team is busy preparing, I would like to mention that the order is as follows, as mentioned earlier on. First up will be Captain Rufus Ligala from TNPA, followed by Mr. Peter Besnat from SASOA, who will then be followed by Mr. Sonti, Maritime Business Chamber, and so forth and so on, colleagues. Without wasting too much time, may we now hand over to Captain Legala. And once again, to save time, I humbly request colleagues just to continue with the presentations uninterrupted in the order that we have on the screen. It is over to you, Captain Legala. And thank you for accepting the invitation to speak, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Program Director. And I will not go into protocol. I will just say protocol observes. In terms of reflections, I picked up 6 themes from the speech of the acting CEO of SAMSA in terms of port administration and maritime administration in South Africa. It has been quite a challenging and a daunting task in the advent of COVID-19, but it proved that collaborations between the stakeholders will assist South Africa Pty Limited from a maritime administration point of view. And I want to applaud SAMSA and the Department of Transport for allowing us as the National Ports Authority to be part of decision making through the toughest time of COVID-19 that ravaged the entire world and had significant impact on the seafarers that comes to our shores. Similarly, we want to say thank you to SAMSA because we know that they are in financial distress, but their mandate of executing port state control remained to par with the best of the best in the world. And keeping safer seas, making ports work as effectively as possible, that ships that are coming into our port comply with the highest standard worldwide. We note also that in terms of financial sustainability of both the Port Authority and also of SAMSA is that we had quite a dramatic decline in terms of vessel traffic coming into the port system. We saw almost 20% decline in the number of ships, and that it's also contributed by a increase in the gross tonnage, which means the vessels that are coming to our shores have grown substantially. The, the gross tonnage has gone by 40%. So, which means shipping lines are employing heavier, bigger vessels. Hence, the revenue for the SAMSA and the TNPA has declined. So, which means we need to change our model for tariffing. Rather, instead of picking up the number of ships, we need to go into the revenue for the gross tonnage coming into our ports. In terms of port safety and risk assessments, we know that there is a new risk that we've introduced in our coastline, which is the ship to ship transfer and bunkering offshore. We need to make sure that between the three authorities we collaborate, make sure we keep South Africa water clean, minimize pollution, also be our state of readiness in terms of any incident. We should be all on the same page, pushing the interests of South Africa. Lastly, I want to delve into the issue of transformation. This economy, the maritime economy, it needs a fundamental change. We need to make sure that we empower black industrialists. It's said that in this day and age, there is no terminal operator that is in South Africa owned by previously black or disadvantaged people. And that we need to make sure that we push and get black industrialists to be operating in our ports, operating in the maritime space. We know it's a very expensive from a capital laying point of view, but we should put a legislation that is empowering to inculcate this kind of culture. Thank you very much, Program Director.
Yes, thank you, Captain Lekala. May we then have the CEO of SASOA, Mr. Besnat, and if possible, immediately after Mr. Besnat, Mr. Sonti, you're free to take the platform, sir, without us coming in. At this stage, colleagues, I would want to confirm that we've got around 82 participants, and the quality is really what matters today. It's a good quality of participants, and it is over to you, Mr. Besnat.
Thanks, Program Director. Captains of the industry, the acting CEO, Sapisa Masioni, and other delegates of this very privileged solar presentation. Yeah, listening to the previous speakers, without a doubt, from year to 2020 to now, it's been tough. I listened to Captain Lekala and the acting CEO refer to the drop off in vessels calling it up ports. And that is without a doubt, even we at SASOA have felt and experienced that. As far as the SAMSA organization is concerned, I think it goes without saying that they are doing a wonderful job when you consider the incidents on our coastline. They've been minimal, and everything that has presented itself has been handled adequately, quickly, and in the best possible manner. And sincerely hope that we can pull together as a nation and we can rise again. Yes, we've been through many unfortunate incidents dating back to year 21, where there was possible strike action. We had looting, and we've had cyber attacks. But South Africans are known, I think, the world over as being very resilient people. And many choose to employ South Africans in overseas countries. And I sincerely believe that we will rise again and we will be a force to be recognized. No matter what our ratings were by the World Bank, I don't believe it's an honest determination. I think when I saw during the troubled parts of 21 how our people in the ports stuck together, they applied themselves, and they organised in a manner that and would not be believed would take place. But we kept the ports going, and even though it was minimal ships coming through, and of course many were delayed. But in the same token, we've started to, I believe, turn the corner of our economy. If I look at the citrus growers, the auto industry, two massive organizations, and export opportunities for South Africa. So we have to pull together and really come back fighting to present our country as one of the front runners that we have been accustomed to in the past. Thank you. Thanks, Program Director.
Thank you kindly, Mr. Besnat. We understand, colleagues, that Mr. Sonti was still struggling with joining the meeting. Can I just check for one more time if Mr. Sonti, you managed to join the meeting?
We've had cyber attacks, but South Africans are known, I think,
Okay, no train smash then, colleagues. I think on that note, we will ask Dr. Cliff Robertson, CEO, National Sea Rescue Institute, to come through. We will then allow Mr. Sonti as and when he is available to give us his presentation. It is over to you, Dr. Robertson.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Program Director, and greetings to all the participants all over South Africa. I'm just going to give a brief overview of the NSRI's performance for 2021. We run a calendar year financial year, so our year ended on the 31st of December. We know that drowning is a significant public health issue in South Africa, and our focus is on saving those lives. More than 1,500 people die of drowning in South Africa every year, a third of them children, and the social and economic consequences of those fatal drownings are significant. We're a 55-year-old non-profit that provides water-facing rescue and drowning prevention services across South Africa, and our mission is to preserve both lives and livelihoods in and around South African waters. We operate under the banner of SAMSA, but we respond independently and collaboratively from 75 locations along our 3,000-kilometer coastline and on inland waters. And we act and respond with flexibility and agility without fear of favor, which is a really good reason to support us. Our drowning prevention programs, just for example, include a water safety program. We educate 300,000 children a year. Those numbers were double in the pre-COVID years, but we're slowly clawing back. We're running a new survival swimming program for children. Last year trained over 2,000 children in basic survival skills. In other words, if they fall in the water, how to get to the side and float. Our long-term objective is to train 1 million children a year. And we believe if we do that, we can make all children water safe by the time they end their school-going career. We have an extensive Pink Rescue Boy program of public rescue devices on all beaches in South Africa. And to date, those devices have been directly instrumental in saving 100 lives. We have shark bite kits in 12 key locations on the south coast, mainly around Knysna and Plettenberg Bay. Fortunately, we haven't had to use them in the recent past. We're trialing pan, tilt, and zoom cameras on beaches in 3 locations at the moment, and hoping that we can begin to use that technology to assist us on beaches. And we're doing rip current research with the University of Portsmouth to develop a weather model that associates rip currents and weather in a predictive model so we can warn the public. You'll be aware that we run a cell phone application called SafeTrex, which now has a subscriber base of over 13,000 paddlers and kayakers and other water users, and that gives you the ability to be tracked and then to alert in an emergency, and you are then able to be tracked directly to your location. Our rescue services comprise 1,500 volunteers along the coast in 75 locations using 111 vessel assets. And in 2021, we saved over 900 lives and unfortunately had to recover the mortal remains of 123 drowning victims. We did 111 medical evacuations from ill or injured seamen from ships at sea last year, a record, probably COVID related. And we assisted with crews for helicopter evacuations with the South African Air Force and other private providers. We're currently lifeguarding 27 beaches on contract with local government. And in this last season rescued 116 bathers and were involved in preventing another 2,000 odd water-related incidents. We also have an extensive marine mammal rescue program. We have a very active whale disentanglement program. And you may have read in the press recently, we rescued 54 horses from the Orange River during the recent floods. Our crews are also all trained in swiftwater rescue so that they can assist in inland flooding events as they happen with these extreme weather events we're experiencing. In 2021, we were also very proud to be able to award finally the civilians involved in the 1991 Oceanus incident with bronze, silver, and gold medals for their incredible efforts. Unfortunately, some of those awards were posthumous awards, but it's unfortunate that those people were never recognized before. But as I say, we're very proud to have been able to do the honor. We are in the process of recapitalizing our offshore rescue fleet at a unit cost of 20 million rand per vessel with a projected build program of 10 vessels. We're currently on number 5 in the mold. 3 vessels have already been delivered. So Durban, Simonstown, and Amanus have new vessels. and 2 more are under construction currently at Two Oceans Marine in Cape Town, which means we're also therefore supporting the boat building industry, and all our vessels, both ribs and offshore vessels, are now built in South Africa, which is a good accomplishment. In 2022, we will have to raise 180 million rand from private and individual and corporate donors. And thank you for those industry partners that support us that are in the room. We have over 100,000 donors giving from 25 rand a month upwards, which will then, support our sustainability into the future. So, we need obviously all the support we can get. Each donor obviously is credited with having saved those lives and livelihoods. And the reality is that we provide a safety net for many communities and industries all across the country who use water either for recreation or for business. Thank you, Mr. Program Director.
Okay. Thank you kindly, Cliff. Much appreciated. And colleagues, we're now almost halfway through the reflections by our stakeholders, and we are now going to give the floor over to Mr. Kripu, and no pressure on you, Mr. Kripu. I just want to say at this stage that our speakers have really done their best to keep to the allocated time, and it is over to you now, sir.
Thank you, sir. I do note that you don't intend putting any pressure on me, and I do understand the need for keeping to time. But I want to thank SAMSA for inviting us again to this forum of your stakeholder management and update on an annual basis. We thank you very much. Program Director, government officials present, the chairperson of SAMSA and the acting chief executive officer. I pass the greetings of the South African Oil and Gas Alliance to this august forum. The South African Oil and Gas Alliance is an industry body, as most of you will know, which promotes investment in oil and gas activities in South Africa, and in support of our members, we also have outward missions outside of South Africa. In addition to that, we obviously get involved with policy and legislative intervention and lobbying. And in that regard, we've had the privilege of working with SAMSA in the Operation Pakisa Roundtables, and I must congratulate SAMSA, must congratulate the Department of Transport, and perhaps the DFFE for the role that they've played in the formation of our incident management system. I think good work has been done there. I congratulate SAMSA for the leadership role that they have played. Ladies and gentlemen, for oil and gas, this has been a difficult year. It's even difficult to name any organization, an oil and gas organization nowadays. People are changing their names left, right, and center to be as politically, well-sounding as possible. But we're still the South African Oil and Gas Alliance. We are working on incorporating renewable forms of energy in keeping with the international pressure that has been put to bear in the energy sector, on the oil and gas exploration and production. But we're not backing down just yet. There is a big debate out there. Everybody is talking about the just transition. We are part of that debate. We also want to make sure that the just transition is just, and that it is just not only for South Africa, but it is just for Africa and most of the third world that have not had much of any participation in the past in the exploration of these fossil fuels. This is not to say we do not support the renewables as forms of energy, but obviously it's not like a switch. You know, you can have on the one side today and turn to the other side tomorrow. We still are energy poor as South Africa. We still suffer from energy poverty, and as the minister said, they will continue. The Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy, there should continue to be an equitable energy mix in our sources of energy, and SAOGA will continue to support the Department of Minerals and Energy. SAOGA will continue to support the membership of SAOGA in their participation in the provision of services and equipment to the oil and gas industry. So, in a nutshell, that has been the buzzword in the oil and gas sector: energy, and decarbonization and just transition. Those have been the buzzwords. Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot stop without mentioning that legislation governing oil and gas exploration and production has still, unfortunately, not been finalized. As we were hoping it would be last year and over the last 2 years, we are still quite hopeful that it is going to be finalized, hopefully within this year. Because as you all know, we have had legislative uncertainty for the longest time. When we went to Operation Pakisa in 2014, we thought that within the next year or so, those issues that hamstring the finalization of the MPRDA would be resolved. But the minister along the way found it wise to stop that process and institute a process that would start a petroleum resources bill. That is where we are now. The industry generally accepted the need for that process, for that separation, so that oil and gas is not hamstrung by issues relating to the mineral sector. We've made good progress, and we're quite hopeful that that's going to be promulgated. I'm mentioning this because it impacts the oil and gas exploration and production in South Africa. And those are the two prime issues that impact oil and gas exploration in South Africa, impact our members in the oil and gas sector, our members who are involved in the production of services in the sector. And we are quite hopeful. We keep hoping that we will ride this saddle and things will improve. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again. And thank you, Program Director, for this opportunity. And goodbye from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you kindly, Mr. Kwiku, as always. And at this stage, colleagues, we wish to confirm that Mr. Sonti has managed to join the meeting. However, we'll allow him a few minutes to settle down and request Mr. Millard to go ahead with his presentation. I hope you're ready, Andrew. And if yes, you may please go ahead, sir. Thank you so much. And then Mr. Millard will be followed immediately by Mr. Sonti. Over to you, Andrew.
Thank you very much, Program Director, and thank you to SAMSA for having this function, and as every year, I think it's a useful opportunity for us to share where the industry is across a very broad range of participants. 5 minutes is not a long time. What I'll do is I'll split this into 3 sections of about a minute and a half each. One, I'll talk about the tailwinds, the good things that we experienced this year. I'll talk about the head things, the difficulties we experienced this year, and then I'll talk about where things became becalmed, the doldrums that we experienced this year. In terms of our tailwinds, we are quite excited to have registered the Cape Acacia, the fourth ship that we brought onto the South African register back in March. It's the largest ship ever to be registered in South Africa at 206,000 deadweight. And it was a successful exercise. We're very grateful and impressed by the registrar and the port officer in Port Elizabeth. We will continue working with them. And we think that certainly the office of the registrar and the skills inside the ports are a good news story for SAMSA, and we're very grateful for that. We also will see the Cape Acacia as a catalyst for jobs. The ship has traded very successfully, and at the moment the broader Booker Marine fleet has 40% of the seafarers are South African, and we're still working on getting that up to above 50%, which was a challenge that I discussed with Captain Lekala at one stage, and I hope to deliver on it. Which brings us to crew development, another tailwind. We are very happy with, although we were impacted in terms of availability of berths by COVID and the difficulties related to crew changes, we managed to push a fair number of South Africans through our system, and we celebrated the first occasion that we had that the master of one of our vessels came out of our officer program, and so we are very chuffed with that. Obviously, one can't, during the past year, one can't dispute that rates were significantly better in the market, but that was artificial in many respects because it was driven by one of the problems that we had to deal with, which is COVID. It literally port restrictions and COVID-related protocols took ships out of the market and delayed ships coming back into the market, and that created an artificial increase in rates, which subsequently crashed as quickly as they rose. So I think I'm not sure I can fully claim that to be a tailwind. Another of our tailwinds was the TNPA bringing out the port tariffs, which confirmed some of the flag incentives. We're very grateful for that, and we will continue to work on them with them to try and expand those and make them more impactful in supporting the South African register. We're very pleased that Deputy Minister Chikunga returned to the Department of Transport. We are disappointed in 2019 when she was moved out because a great deal of institutional memory went with her. She walked the Pakiso walk with us. She walked the Booker Marine story with us. She had a great deal of understanding of what was going on in the industry, and we hope that her return will be positive for the industry. And the final tailwind, which I think is another feather in SAMSA and DOT's cap, amongst other organs of state, was the fact that South Africa served as such a successful crew change hub, one of the best in the world, one of the most convenient in the world. And without that, I think a lot of seafarers would have suffered a lot more than necessary on ships that were that were around in the Cape. We were able to do out-of-port limit crew changes in Algoa, in-port crew changes in Saldanha, I think, and not just for South African seafarers, for foreign seafarers as well. So I think South Africa can congratulate itself on what it achieved. However, we did have some headwinds. The major one has been discussed at length, and that would be COVID. And I'm not sure that it's getting any. The world is in so many different places in terms of how to respond to this, particularly in terms of port regulations, that has made it incredibly difficult for crew changes. We did successful crew changes in Korea. We did successful crew changes in Bangladesh. It was impossible to do crew changes in China. For all of what they say, Singapore, a number of different countries that you would have expected to be better. We could not change South Africans in the Philippines. So this, and I mean, we also not just crew changes, we had port delays, very strict COVID-related rules. I'm not going to go into too much detail on COVID, but I mean, it's with us. It continues to be with us, and we're all looking forward to the day that it's no longer with us, to the extent that it is. It also, I mean, one of our big disappointments with COVID is dried up. We were busy placing young South Africans onto cruise vessels. That disappeared. We're hoping to bring that back into effect quite soon. So that's our major headwind. The loss, it was covered by the CEO of SAMSA, but South Africa's loss of its position on the council of the IMO at a time like this, when so many regulations are being put together about carbon taxes, environmental, new fuel categories, new fuel types. It was incredibly unfortunate, and we would urge government to work with industry to leverage every relationship to make sure that we get back onto that council. It was South Africa is a maritime nation, has ambitions to be a greater maritime nation. SAMSA is the local regulatory arm of the IMO. It's just we have 3.5 million square kilometers of search and rescue ocean that we have to look after. It's just untenable that we can be replaced, and we're particularly replaced by a country like Vanuatu. So I think this is something that everyone should be working on in anticipation of restoring us to where we were. Another headwind, and this is really about defending the cost and sustainability of the value chain. We were quite disappointed that there's been some delay in defining and standing behind some of the flag values in South Africa. We're still not sure what they are. We do hope that they will be extensively indexed to environmental sustainability, and we continue to hope that import use of scrubbers will be forbidden in South African ports, as it is in most major countries, and seafarer welfare and well-being. But these are discussions that should be had not so much about when it comes to the flag values around local legislation, but alignment with international trends, because bear in mind we're trying to attract tonnage to our country, and that tonnage can go anywhere. So we would hope that a set of flag values that differentiates us from many of the other options won't be too far off. I'm running out of time, so I'll speak briefly about where things became becalmed. Well, many of the issues that I discussed this time last year are no closer to being resolved than they are, now a year later. And I hope that kind of non-movement, whether it's because of COVID, structure issues within SAMSA, energy in the industry, or anything else, it's not helpful. So we hope that the issues about policy interpretation, tax interpretation, etc., will be resolved before we do our 2023 pre-SONA discussion. We spoke last year about having a round trade table between government and industry. That never happened. We hope it does happen. But all in all, I think we are still much in the doldrums, and that will impact on fleet growth and industry growth, and therefore jobs growth, if we don't resolve it. We can point fingers at ourselves in terms of that we haven't done enough community advancement in our crewing and sourcing activities, and we will look to now, particularly now that the cruise industry might be opening up overseas, we'll, with our partners, look to remedy that. And there are a number of opportunities that will be presented once in a lifetime type changes to the maritime industry between now and 2030, driven by a number of initiatives around, principally around decarbonisation. And we hope they were there a year ago, and I think we might even have gone a little bit backwards, but we need to make sure that South Africa has its share, at least to be neutral on that, because of the way that the structures, the proposals are being put together at the moment, is we likely to end up paying for them as costs get attached to the value chain and drift down either to local shippers or local mines. So I would urge that we have an open, transparent and incredibly patriotic discussion between industry and government about how to position the country to firstly not be at a loss for some of these changes, and secondly to maybe benefit from them. So I think that all in all, it's been, we are hopeful that 2022 to 2023 will be a significantly better year. We're looking to bring younger tonnage, more tonnage onto the flag. We are seeing significant benefits coming out of the crew development work that we've done, and we're expanding that and diversifying that quite a lot. And so I think there is momentum in the industry, maybe not as much as we would like, but we certainly hope that it will continue and that it will prove attractive to other entrepreneurs, ex-seafarers, people who see benefit in this industry and like to contribute to its successes. And maybe by 2023, there'll be someone else there to talk about what they've learned in international shipping during the previous year. But thank you very much for the opportunity to participate. It's always an honor and a privilege, and I wish SAMSA and all other players significant success during 2022.
Okay, thank you kindly, Mr. Millard, as always. And at this stage, colleagues, we will give the platform over to Mr. Sonti. Mr. Sonti, we understand you are with us now, sir, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Program Director. I greet the entire executive of SAMSA. I greet all the industry players and government players, government department representatives in this session today. Firstly, I must apologize with the technical issues. We don't take this opportunity very light to be sharing in this platform today, as we look into this year, 2022, and moving forward, continuing to engaging and working, with SAMSA. Officially, I think we as a chamber, started to work with SAMSA around year 2019. And between there and now, I can say we have seen quite, a number of changes, some that were good for the industry and some that we still feel, needed to be addressed robustly by everyone. Being a voice for the small business, I think SAMSA has provided, quite a platform for us as an organization within the industry space. And we so wish that, that continues as we drive, this maritime agenda for South Africa. Just today, we had a session which was a follow-up of what we started last week, setting the tone for South Africa's maritime agenda 2022 and beyond. And I so believe and hope that, the likes of SAMSA could be part of such, engagements and conversations, including what the country is currently busy with in terms of another framework with the Oceans Economy Master Plan. We also, very concerned with regards to, us losing our position at the seat in the IMO Council. And we believe a strong and stable SAMSA and the DOT and the entire industry, could prevent such things from happening in the future. With the hope that, moving forward, we are able also, not sure that I have seen someone who's a representative from DOT, from the executive type, from office from there, as to say the mandate, SAMSA, one of those mandates that SAMSA has in terms of, promoting a republic's maritime interest, whilst we have lost, I think, a year or two with COVID, I think moving forward, taking from the last two speakers that I've had, we need now to be serious about what are those interests and how do we come around and sit together and address those for the country and see how we can all have some wins as a country together, the government, the industry, and the new entrances also in this space. We believe moving forward, there can be greater things that we can continue on. We see in the Alcoa Bay, also, the lifting of the moratorium for new entrances to come or new players within this place. And we believe such would create, traction for economic boost. And we hope other parties that are to play their own role as well in making sure that what we have and what God has blessed us with our coastline, we are able to, all of us, one, protect it, but also see how the economy benefits from it, the local economy, understanding that, maritime as a whole is an international space, but we can never forget or leave out the issues of localization. We have seen how SAMSA has played a role in being proactive in looking at, the activities that we see with regards to oil and gas and energy around, activities within the ports as well. How they've also been engaging with the likes of TNPA in making sure we find a sustainable way in seeing how do we also position ourselves as this country and making sure that we open up spaces, even with the offshore activities that we know this country can be able to play a very vital role in being a full service center for all those vessels that are passing by our shores. We believe there is an opportunity that as the stakeholders, we can all begin to also capitalize on the issue of African trade. And I think this is continuing to be raised very hard on how do we engage around this and making sure that we position, South Africa and we position Africa. And I think had we had not been somehow operating in isolation, I think our lobbying, even in the IMO, should be stronger if we are able to bring our African, counterparts around the table and driving a big and a huge sustainable, oceans agenda for Africa as a whole. As a Maritime Chamber, we remain committed in working with, the South African Maritime Safety Authority, and we believe that moving forward from now, we should look at, as what Mr. Millard was saying, we can't be having these ceremonial, engagements just for the sake of having them. What are we taking from this? And what is it that we are beginning now to implement and make sure that the economy, because we are faced with the biggest pandemic, which is COVID. And it is our firm belief as the Maritime Chamber that the oceans economy or the blue, economy agenda can have a great impact. We have not realized the possible, contribution of 177 billion that is ought to be contributed by the maritime industry towards our national GDP. And we believe now it is time we stop, just talking, but we begin to engage. And I believe everyone that has attended this session today are those that are saying we are raising our hands, we are there, and we are willing now to get our hands dirty to make sure that we rebuild our economy. And it starts with each and every one of us in this platform today. Without saying much, thank you very much, Program Director and the entire executive and leadership of SAMSA for affording us this opportunity. We continue committed to working with you in driving, especially the mandate of promoting South Africa's maritime interest. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Sonti, for the presentation. And at this stage, colleagues, we will then request Mr. Dwai to come through. And immediately after Mr. Dwai, the CEO of the Saldanha Bay IDZ will give her presentation, which will mark the last presentation for the day in as far as the reflections are concerned. Thereafter, we will then move over to the keynote address by the SAMSA chairperson. Over to you, Mr. Dwai.
Thank you, Mr. September. Good afternoon, everyone. I represent the fishing industry. The industry welcomes the opportunity to collaborate with SAMSA and also for us to demonstrate the economic potential of our sector to ensure that we remain a serious contributor to our economy. As you might know, Chairperson, that the long-term fishing rights deadline was extended to the 28th of February. The need to conclude the FREP process by end of this month is an imperative one for all stakeholders to stabilize the sector for certainty and also for continuity at micro and macro socio-economic climate. It's not initially part of the priority growth of the oceans economy, then called Operations Pakisa, besides our meaningful contribution to the economy. However, since 2020, we've been actively participating in the building of our master's plan. We look forward to finalization and implementation of that plan so that we can showcase our opportunities. Continuity throughout our sector is a concern because of the outstanding fishing rights. There is so much potential for investment, employment creation, but until those rights are finalized, we can't invest and we're unable to move forward. Assuming there is continuity, certainty, and stability, our industries, all our sectors in the fishing industry, they offer material opportunity for further investments, job retention, and the creation of economic value. The industry seeks to improve or rather improvement on the monitoring and government of the fishing resource, which is the resource that we harvest in the oceans. This must be facilitated through investment in scientific research and policing system strategies through public partnerships and with our government mainly. We wish that government can increase the financial aid to medium and small rights holders in order to assist with vertical integration and global competitiveness for those smaller subsectors in the fishing industry. And lastly, Chairperson, collaboration and consultation with SAMSA on training interventions is very critical. Both current interventions and future programs to ensure zero fatalities on our fishing vessels at sea. Thank you, Chairperson. We appreciate the opportunity and thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, sir. Concise and straight to the point. Truly appreciated. The floor is yours, Ms. Bierkes.
Thank you, Chair, and all protocol observed to all attendees. I want to say thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today. So to begin my feedback, during the current financial year, at the beginning of the year, we concluded an MOU with SAMSA because both the IDZ and SAMSA have a shared interest to promote South Africa's maritime interests. And there is a scope of this framework in this relationship that speaks to about raising the bar of South Africa's position for investment, nationally and internationally. It also speaks to our shared interests to develop people in the industry and to develop deep supply chains locally. Because this is how, from the IDZ's perspective as a special economic zone, we contribute to industrializing the economy and creating a resilience to the economy and to market shocks, which everyone here, and being the last speaker of the stakeholders, I'm sure everyone can relate to. Other areas in terms of our work with SAMSA has been about forward-looking as well. So under the year, the IDZ started an initiative called the Saldanha Bay Innovation Campus, which really is about creating currently it's a virtual space, but we do intend to have a physical building, a space for collaboration and clustering in the industry, because it is technology and it is the bedding down of technology in our value chains in the businesses that will ensure the resilience and competitiveness locally and globally. With the acceleration of the climate change agenda, companies are going to have to really focus in on manufacturing their goods and providing their services in a way that has less carbon intensity and less use of fossil fuels. And this is pertinent for the maritime industry and the shipping industry at large. So this is a key area of focus for us in the year ahead with SAMSA. On our priorities as the IDZ and reflecting on the past year, which has we are not immune to the national and international investment climate. IDZs, SEZs do not operate in a bubble. And when business is suffering, the SEZs are suffering as well. So for us to be resilient in our own right and a good public corporate citizen, we need to enhance our value offering to the market. We need to adapt to what the market is telling us, to put it quite short. And one of the things that we've been working on over the last year, working with TNPA in this, is bringing new port infrastructure to market in the port of Saldanha. There is a lack of capacity for marine manufacturing and services, spaces and infrastructure in the country. This has been well documented. And Saldanha, with its greenfield nature and it's being the largest and deepest natural port in the southern hemisphere, has natural advantages in the port space and in the maritime space. And if you add then the developments on the IDZ side, on the land side, in that we are a free port. We are the only SEZ in a port that has a customs control area designation, which makes it exceedingly attractive and value-adding to boat manufacturers, vessel manufacturers, importers of equipment. This is lowering the cost of doing business in this industry. And it is vitally important to get to that nub of what hinders us going and what keeps us back as in the economy. Another area of interest and a priority for us will be then taking this free port model far and wide and working with SAMSA and TNPA and other critical role players from the industry to make sure that the offering in the IDZ is positioned and relevant to what the business needs are. Lastly, we will continue to work with and prioritize local community and business development and ensure that they are effectively engaged and supported to participate in these value chains. I want to thank, once again, I want to thank SAMSA for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the IDZ. You are a fervent partner to the IDZ and an important role player in securing the future of the maritime industry, and we stand ready to be called upon should you need us. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you kindly, CEO. And colleagues, that brings to the end the section of the program where we were listening to reflections from the speakers of various organizations, senior officials for that matter, at CEO level at the most. And now, colleagues, we are approaching a time where we are going to hear a keynote address from the SAMSA board chairperson. Just checking if the board chair is ready. Yes, she is, and it is over to you, board chair. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lucy. I just want to check, is my audio fine?
Yes, it is fine.
Yes, chair, we can hear you loud and clear. your video is also good. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Program Director, Mr. Vusi September, my fellow board members, Acting DDG, Mr. Matunzi Madia, SAMSA Acting CEO, Ms. Mashilwani, SAMSA colleagues, captains of industry, and distinguished guests. I think what resonates for me across all the inputs from our various speakers today is that there have been some gains in the maritime industry, yet a lot of the systemic constraints still remain, especially within the context of COVID-19 and its restrictions. It's clear that through concerted intergovernmental and industry partnership, we can bank and scale up innovation in our solutions, especially in times of stress. Yet we must also progress on delays in policy, legislative, regulatory, and institutional reforms required to unlock the industry. It's clear that South Africa can no longer afford own goals. Our neighboring countries are outmaneuvering us and positioning themselves to be competitive and attract investment to grow their jobs, their capabilities, and their supply chains in the maritime sector. I'm not sure how many of you have read the recent World Economic Forum 2022 Global Risk Report, but what it says about South Africa is telling. South Africa is one of 31 countries with a high risk of erosion of social cohesion. The report also finds that prolonged economic stagnation, employment and livelihoods crisis, and state collapse are some of the biggest risks facing us over the next 2 years. What this tells us is that we clearly have no time to waste, and we all need to redouble our efforts. While we are all eagerly awaiting tomorrow's 28th State of the Nation address, closer to home, in our maritime sector, today is the 10th SAMSA engagement with stakeholders to reflect on the gains and misses of the previous year. In the process, we also hope to share direction on our priorities and plans for the year ahead. Last year, when I sat here on the same platform, 5 months after taking the helm of the SAMSA board, I assured you all that when we meet again in 2022, we would be talking about a stabilizing SAMSA poised to prepare South Africa to become an international maritime center while contributing to economic recovery and the building of a developmental state. With that background, I'm pleased to report on behalf of the SAMSA board that despite the challenges presented by the prolonged COVID-19 pandemic, a legacy of controversy as well as a poor audit history, we stay true to this commitment. We're turning the corner in stabilizing SAMSA and good governance in 5 key areas. We have delivered our first unqualified audit in 4 years for the financial year ending 30 March 2021. We stayed honest to the audit recovery plan which we tabled to the Minister by diligently closing out the internal weaknesses underlying previous audit findings. We have taken a non-negotiable line on addressing whistleblower and stakeholder allegations of malfeasance. You are aware that we have course corrected by suspending implicated executives and running an independent forensic audit to get to the bottom of long-standing issues which have gone unaddressed for far too long. We have run a successful CEO recruitment process and made recommendations of a suitable candidate to the Minister for appointment. These details will be shared with industry once this process is finalized. We have held the SAMSA executive accountable to maintaining our going concern status by tightening our belt and achieving savings targets introduced through austerity measures. And finally, we have reviewed and approved enhancement to over 20 ICT, HR, finance, and legal policies to bring SAMSA up to speed with current practice in this regard. I wish to commend the SAMSA executive team for buying into our vision and playing their part, not only to ensure that the dreaded cash flow day zero never saw the light of day, but that we've turned around our audit record. We remain committed to continued collaboration with all stakeholders to administer, regulate, and develop our maritime sector. This must specifically be done in a manner that diversifies participation in our value chain. And I think many of the speakers today have recognized that value chain participation and deepening our supply chains is one of the key ways that we'll contribute to economic recovery and social cohesion. As most recently as these past 2 weeks, you would have also heard our announcement lifting the moratorium on the awarding of bunkering licenses in Algoa Bay. This is one item in the basket of interventions designed to give full effect to our maritime industry potential. I wish to reiterate that SAMSA remains committed to our mandate to ensure the protection of life and property at sea, prevention of pollution by ships, and the promotion of South Africa's maritime interests. I also wish to thank my fellow board members, Advocate Dorothy Kosa, Ms. Lindelwa Dlamini, Mr. Becca Zulu, Mr. Lucas Haludi, as well as our shareholder representative, Acting Director General Mthunzi Madia, for their diverse and often very robust engagement, which helps drive performance and results. Collectively, we are the tugboat correcting this tanker. On a final note, the board is clear that we have much more to do to ensure that the remainder of our term sets SAMSA and the maritime sector up for success. This includes putting in place a robust business strategy and financial sustainability model, as well as right-sizing this organization with the requisite skills and focus to deliver on catalyzing the blue economy. In closure, let us continue talking and growing and recovering the maritime industry. I thank you. Over to you, Busi.
Thank you. Thank you kindly, Board Chair. Again, concise but very informative. I think giving a reflection on the last year presentation as well as where the board is at in terms of turning the SAMSA ship around, as well as the plans that board has in place for completing its term with our organization. Thank you so much for those words, ma'am. And without wasting too much time, colleagues, we now go to hand over to Mr. Beka Zulu, board member, who will be giving us the closing remarks as well as the vote of thanks. But I would also, just before Mr. Zulu comes through, just to say that we have taken note also from a management point of view of all the matters raised by industry, more especially the concerns and the requests. And soon, colleagues, before mid-March, you will hear from us again in terms of a follow-up session where we are going to be breaking down some of the issues that you raised with us. And we're looking forward to a much more physical or hybrid session where we can engage much more robustly and develop a program that is collectively owned by all of us in the room and other stakeholders that could not make it to the session today. So certainly this is not going to be one of the talk shows that perhaps colleagues have been exposed to, but this time around we're going to have a clear action plan and milestones in terms of taking the discussions today forward. And on that note, therefore, colleagues, I'm going to hand over to Mr. Zulu, and after Mr. Zulu's presentation, we will then call it a program. Over to you, Mr. Zulu.
Thank you kindly for concise, very informative. I think giving a reflection on the last year presentation as well as where the board is at in terms of turning the SAMSA
Hi, Busi, you're still on mute.
Sorry about that, colleagues. I just needed to check if Mr. Zulu is in the meeting and in a position to deliver closing remarks. Okay, it doesn't look like it, and I'll take guidance from the acting CEO in terms of how do we then deal with this item. Acting CEO, if you may please guide the MM, whether the acting CEO will take the slot or whether another board member will take the slot. Acting CEO.
I'm trying to check if Miss Linda Radlamini, because I thought she had also confirmed but I'm not seeing the participant on my side. Radlamini, are you in the room?
Acting CEO, I'm happy to assist with this one. I think the other board members might be indisposed at this point.
Thank you, Board Chair. That would be appreciated, ma'am.
Okay. First of all, I think we've had some really insightful input from the range of speakers that we've had today, and I'd like to thank the SAMSA team that's put this event together. Lucy, under your care and under your guidance. I think the acting CEO was quite granular as to what has managed to happen in the SAMSA space over the last year, but it is clear that we have to redouble our efforts, that the time for assuming that we have more time as a country is increasingly diminishing day by day. I've spoken to the increasing competitiveness of our neighboring countries and the broader Southern Africa region in, I think, a global economy that's increasingly shifting and focusing on competitiveness, while ensuring that local communities and nations are deepening the benefits of the economy. So I do want to thank all of the stakeholders who've made it today, who've given their individual inputs, and who are all committed to partnering with us on this journey. We look forward to ongoing participation throughout the year. I think Vusi has already spoken to a follow-up session, as well as I think the session that had been raised by Vernon around the stakeholder, the industry ministerial and SAMSA engagement, which is a long outdue engagement, I believe. When I reflect on the role that business is playing in driving the economic recovery plans, I see a similar role for the business sector in the maritime industry as well, and repositioning ourselves as one of the key sectors that needs to drive South Africa's economic recovery, as well as restoration of social cohesion. So on that regard, on that basis, I noticed that we are 15 minutes early, but that just, I think, speaks to the efficiency and agility of the way that you've managed today's agenda and the succinctness of our various speakers. I would like to thank you all for your time and your participation and for sharing your insights today. And we all look forward to our next engagement. Wishing you well and wishing you a safe time on the roads, and from a perspective of COVID as well, to maintain all the COVID protocols required. And thank you all. Have a good year.
No, thank you. Thank you, Board Chair. I don't know when you had time to prepare that closing remark, but certainly thank you, ma'am, for that. And colleagues, once again, without putting pressure on the SAMSA team, you can, over the next 2 days, expect to see a detailed report of this session on the SAMSA blog. And then, as I say, in the next couple of weeks, you will also hear from us in terms of the follow-up engagement, which we say it will either be hybrid or physical, depending on where we're at with the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you, colleagues, and have a good afternoon.
Thank you, Chair.
Acting CEO, you are on mute. Sorry.
Thank you, and thank you to all the participants. Bye-bye.